Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today I'm going to be talking about MGEN, Miragen Therapeutics Incorporations. I'm not going to go through very much of technical analysis. I'm going to give points here and there mainly, and then I'm going to go towards the company itself as a DD, right? It's very important to look at companies like this and wonder why did they jump and if this jump is warranted. Now this one here has jumped for around 130%, and in this one I'm not going to say buy it or sell it. I'm going to say bullish points and bearish points, and you decide. Let's jump right into it. So 1 week perspective, we don't get much here except that we see was a falling one. Now that moving averages gone from bearish to bullish because of today's jump. On the 1 day perspective, we get to see it was actually trading a little bit sloppy. Today, we get to see that it really defied the odds of a Death Star that formed around here. So if there was no news, it would most definitely was on the way of falling. 1 hour perspective, and this is mainly just for the next few hours. Actually, let's do 2 hour perspectives. You get to see it actually looks really bullish. Although the 80x, everything else looks bullish except the 80x. The 80x actually suggests that there is a possibility of this trend to see a pullback. Now, looking into the volume, it's actually steady all throughout the day, which is a bullish point. Now, the next thing on a 1 hour perspective, it's a little bit sloppier, but still looks quite bullish. I mean, first you get a bull flag. That bull flag works out nicely, and then it's mostly accumulates rather than drops right back. Now, what you would expect in, let's say, if it was a pump and dump purely, is you get to see that and it just drops all the way back, and I've seen that happen. But that kind of recovery, that looks quite nice. Now, the next thing we're looking at here is going to be the moving averages. We get to see it's been dropping for quite a while. Volume like this one here has never been even seen before. So it might actually show that either, you know, with the recent market trends, with it going red, people are either bored, or this one has a lot of potential. Stochastic fast and slow. The fast one, what we get to see is that you might get one extra leg of day, or actually might see a pullback. On the slow, it shows in that there is a potential growth over time, very similar to what we've seen around this area. Now coming in towards the charts, it's very important to recognize your supports and resistances. Current support sits at 106 for this one here on the Fibonacci retracement, 129 as a resistance, and above there 152, and way below 77 at the Fibonacci retracement. Now let's take a quick look into significant supports and resistances on this one. We're going to use the price line action. A significant support currently lies very close towards right on to here, the 119 mark. Below that we're looking at the 115 mark. Below that we're looking at the 106, and then the $1. Now below that we're looking at 96, and then it goes to 89, 84, and 71. Amazing. Now let's take a quick look into resistances, because, you know, we want to see how far it can go. Now the good news is that this one did not hit its 52 weeks yet, and you get to see it's actually a massive jump from there. Now the 52 weeks, I believe, is at 227. Currently, the next resistance we're looking at that is, well, I would say important for us, is the 138 mark, or the 140. Above there 145, above there 161, and if we break the 161, we can very much see the 190s, and then all the way to $2. Next thing we're going to be doing is diving deeply into the company itself, including the company they're acquiring. So in terms of their pipeline, I'm going to go through towards it a bit more details in the presentation. But what we get to see here is they have mainly 4 different pipelines going on. Mainly 2 of them are in phase 2 data. One in 2022 and one in 2023 in terms of the results. IND for 2022, and for the 4th one, IND for 2022. So you get to see the length of the catalyst expected to that is a little bit going to be a little bit longer than anticipated in terms of the phases, but there's still catalysts in between that I'm going to discuss about in a second in their presentation. First, let's take a quick look into let's say who they are, and then we're going to go back to who we're acquiring. So definitely today we got the news that they're going to be acquiring Miragen Therapeutics Incorporations, and the way the transaction is going to go on is by $91 million in advance as private financing. So that is quite interesting because they're definitely going to be adding on debt for this one here in terms of the financing through a private placement. And it's going to be basically, they're going to compound phase 2 proof of concept studies in TED and expand its orphan disease pipeline. There was a conference call today at 9 a.m., but I'm going to go towards the presentation they've gone through just in case you missed it, since I don't see a recording on here. So, Miragen Therapeutics Corporation overview. Basically, in terms of what the common shares they have, currently they have around 68.4 million shares. And then I'm going to go towards their kind of focus. As I mentioned, these are the main 4 pipelines. I know it shows a 5th one, but that's more of to be decided. Now, the program 1 that they have, which is onto their thyroid eye disease, the TED. That one is, well, thyroid eye disease. And they have around 15,000 to 20,000 new patients per year. Progression from acute to fibrotic phase, which is a chronic stage, after 6 to 24 months for with potential for permanent scarring. Historically, poor treatment options would include surgery, radiation, steroids, or lifestyle changes. High physical and mental burden for patients motivated for new treatments. So the next thing is, well, what was the last catalyst coming for this one that was quite substantial in terms of a milestone? The TEPEZA approved for January 2020. That seems to be the last one here. For quarter 1, they have around 200 patients on therapy for the patient and physician interest in population expansion. And so they have around quarter 1 200, quarter 2 above 200 patients on therapy. And the projections include patients in active and acute phases and inactive chronic stages. So basically we're looking at a market towards $3 billion. That's in the long term. So the active and acute, we're going to look off TED, we're looking at 15 to 20k incidents per year. The inactive or chronic, we're looking at 17k. With the TEPEZA wholesale acquisition cost is around $343,000 per course, an annual net realization price of $200,000 per course. Market will remain branded until at least 2032 as exclusively for teprotumumab, potentially to even 2039. So they have the right for this one for quite a while. I'm not going to go through the statistical data per point because, I mean, they look good on charts. But taking a quick look into their approach for TED, they basically break down to how the strategy for TED in terms of breaks down to VRDN-001, 2, and 3. Now, the first thing is a quick look into the VRDN-001 for the TED. What we get to see here is their kind of catalyst coming up. License signed in October 2020 for quarter 4 2020. Now, they do have IND filing for third quarter for 2021 coming up, and the phase 2 pilot data in quarter 1 in 2022. Quite a while from what we're looking at right now. Previously filed US IND, so you might actually hear something back regarding that. Now, the next thing coming up is basically differentiations between VRDN and the teprotumumab. But I hate pharmaceutical words sometimes, they get my tongue all twisted, but we're moving forward here. The proposed phase 2 design and pilot cohort for 3 expansion cohorts in TED patients. I'm not going to go through exactly as well the details, but basically they have the saturation dose, middle dose, and the low dose. And they basically are related to the dosage. VRDN-002, and this one is, as we remember, it all falls under the TED. So what I like about this one here is they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. Some companies have recently dropped something like 90-something%, I believe BVXV, just because they put all their eggs in one basket. And that's something that, you know, this company is definitely not doing. So the next thing, yep, this is the 002. They have basically comparing teprotumumab current dosing of around 10 milligrams, and they're having basically a different dosage for something like Takhzyro and Duvixent or creating antibodies with longer lasting half-life. So the IND for this one is in year 2021, and it basically is a biosuperior SC injection approach for half-life extension technology, and they're looking for phase 1 to start around 2022 for mid-year. Pipelines, teams of finances, they go through a bunch of things going on. Now the main thing that I'm interested in is the current expectations. Now the cash on completion of 91 million pipe is expected to be approximately $140 million. Expected cash runaway through 2023, which means that they're not expected to create offerings from this time on. Some SEC filings, including their need to maintain $1 for more than 10 days, above $1 for more than 10 days. They got their extension all the way until April 6, 2021, which is solid. Next thing coming in, I believe that was a notice of delisting. Next thing coming up was one of their latest phase 2 for sole clinical trials of cobomarsen in patients with cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, which basically got cut out. So basically Miragen decides to discontinue further internal developments of this product, so that one was scraped up. So it kind of gives a little bit, this is one of more of a bearish news where it gives you a little bit of worrying about their progress based on previous decisions. Now the next thing here is their bonus program, and basically it's an incentive for employees to work better and they get bonuses. The next thing coming up is the Roche Lee M, which is the CEO of the company itself, has bought around something relating to 900,000 shares at 0.91 shares somewhere around the 13th of September. So that was a while ago. It's currently exercisable around the 13th of 10th. So the stock option, which is the right to buy. So they do have that already. Next thing coming up is their CEO stepping down. So nothing significant there. Now this was a little bit ago, so September 17th, but it shows in a little bit of a different restructuring. Of course, if you lose your CEO, you're doing a little bit of restructuring there as well. Next thing is the results of meetings with FDA regarding INDESIRE pivotal study for cobomarsen in adults. Now we already know this one was canceled, so I don't need to talk about it. Next thing coming up is their current cash. Now this is in thousands. The current cash right now is around $30.6 million, with a total assets of around $33 million. Total stockholder equity sits around somewhere very close to there. And when it comes in towards the revenue, we're looking at 168,000 compared to 2.5 million last year. In terms of their net loss though, we get to see that their net loss is less. We're looking at almost 9 million to 6.5 million in loss. Next thing coming up is the company they're acquiring, right? We want to get to know who they are. What is being added to this pipeline? So I took a quick look into this company here. Basically, from my understanding, is they're trying to get pain relief solutions coming up as a revolutionary product. So goes towards directly through a lipid matrix for modulations of tight injections, and it's more of it's going to be delivered through basically IV. And from my understanding is this includes in a little bit of more hospitals rather than over-the-counter ones. Now I didn't go through so much details because their website is, you know, they're not a public company, they're a private company, so we get to see a little bit of ambiguity in it. But they also have the Notion Smart Delivery Lotion, which basically is going to be a combination of uncompromising quality ingredients with skin penetrating technology, provide maximum relief in aesthetically pleasing lotion. So in a way, it could be something very similar to the redefining CBD therapeutics, very similar towards a numbing cream. So it's 100% plant-based, 0 THS, clinically proven, unmatched effectiveness, easy to use formula, and results in minutes. So it has a lot while trying to create something very similar to a numbing cream, but it's actually pain relief that goes and penetrates through. So that's something interesting. Numbing cream usually does not numb through, it's just the skin. So that's the difference between them. And from my understanding, even though it says here through IV, but as we get to see from the other one, it also relates to through the basically delivery method of lotions. Next thing coming up is their milestones. So they do have the two kind of clinical ones, the VIR 100, which is preclinical, and the VIR 200. So the VIR 100 is the one affecting an estimated of 12% of populations for migraines, and it's common for those that experience migraines can be debilitating. So basically, according to the Global Burden of Disease study, males and females under the age of 50 have the third highest cause of disability worldwide for migraines. We have initiated preclinical studies to kind of solve this. VIR 200, this one here is on osteoarthritis. Now it's basically still in R&D, so it's still way ahead, and you get to see on their website not much details onto their products, but this gives us a good insight. Now the next thing coming up is this warranted 140%? And the question on the answer onto this one here is, well, it's very hard to mention, but this one jumped on a lot higher on smaller news before, but it actually dumped back down. So what we expect is a short-term jump and then a stability, a little bit of accumulation. So it could be something relating to whether it drops, but it doesn't drop all the way back to the previous mark. So it's kind of still sees a bump for the investors, but whether we're going to see a multi-runner. Right now, what's happening with the current politics and everything and the elections looming, a lot of people don't want to buy things. So if the companies tomorrow, you don't get a massive news and another company gets the torch, this one probably will get maybe a red candle, something very similar to what's happened here. Whether it continues towards a green candle, or just basically right away meets with a red candle, drops down, then jumps back later, as we've seen with other ones. Now, the only way I would play this is if you have a tight stop limit. Now, the difference between that one here and this one here is this is a massive news and a massive jump. Now, with the gaps similar to this, I do expect to see perhaps a little bit of resistance coming in. Now, the only way to trade this is to trade it within volume. Once the volume dies down, you get out. That is the rule. Long-term investing, this one possibly has a potential, but it's still a penny stock. Penny stocks are pennies for a reason, and they have something to prove. But I do think that, we can still see potential over there. What do you think about this ticker? Make sure to mention down in the comments below. So subscribe and like it. Have a wonderful day.